All right, welcome back to the AI Native Advisor. I'm your host today, Mike Shannon, CEO over at Improve. And we have a special guest, David Rath, partner and chief investment officer at Continuum Wealth Advisors, but also boasting a in-depth background across some larger companies such as Northwestern Mutual, Goldman Sachs. And so I want to dive into all the above and all revolving around AI strategy, challenges, opportunities. So David, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and David, one thing we had in common was Saratoga Springs, New York, which I don't meet too many people with ties to Saratoga Springs. I can't even say it today. That's where my mom's from. Are you in Saratoga today?
Yep, we're right downtown in Saratoga. So right now it's changing over from track season into like the winter wonderland where they dress up all the poles and the light poles in Christmas attire. So it's a great time of year.
Beautiful. It's like one of the most photogenic towns, I think, in America.
It's the best small town in America. I just put that out there.
There it is. I totally agree. I spent growing up, we spent summers going to Saratoga and didn't spend as much winter time, but enough to get a taste of what the holiday season's like in Saratoga. So very cool. Well, okay. So David, you've spent the past 5 years with Continuum. And obviously, as I mentioned, you've got a background that includes, director of portfolio management at Northwestern Mutual. Your career early on started at Goldman Sachs. I'd love to actually start. We'll get into AI and the state of where things are with Continuum. But I actually like to start a little bit on your journey into, RIA. You could have obviously continued, going on to great success in the larger shops. What had you come over to the RIA side?
So starting actually Goldman, it was a company called ACO, which is a subsidiary of Goldman Sachs. Is very prominent up here. I would say most people who you encounter in wealth management or financial services probably started their career at ACO. It's a very big employer locally, and it was a great entry-level opportunity, learning the basics of wealth management, financial planning, etc. Ended up leaving there for a spot with a team at Northwestern Mutual. It was a bigger team. I was one of, I think, 5 or 6 employees working for 2 business partners, 2 advisors at that time in a smaller capacity than of what I'm at right now, where I was a portfolio analyst doing a lot of stock research, portfolio trading, that kind of stuff. But I had made the switch because at a larger organization, you are beholden to a lot of the bureaucracy and advancement opportunities, sure. And there's a lot of things at play. And so I jumped at the opportunity to, even though it was Northwestern's a big company, it was a smaller team that I was working for.
Yeah, makes sense. So we keep these episodes 20 to 25 minutes, so there's a lot more to unpack there on the David Rath background. But today, where you're at, Chief Investment Officer at Continuum, I'd love to get just kind of the lay of the land as it pertains to AI, but more about kind of long-term system thinking. That was one of the things that stood out to me about you was David's thinking kind of beyond individual point solutions and all the frenzy around AI, and it seems like you're taking a long-term perspective on the growth of Continuum. And so help us just understand like the state of where things are. I think you mentioned hypergrowth mode may be coming soon, or you're in the middle of it, but what's the state of things?
Yeah, it's an exciting time here at Continuum. We have just crossed the $300 million threshold, whereas Congrats. When I joined 5 years ago, we were at 147. And so we're growing at a decent clip, but we've just put the pieces in place this year. We hired our director of financial planning, Patrick Kalish. We hired him in February. We brought on a director of growth, a guy I met out at Future Proof. He's a remote worker out in Minneapolis, Andrew Hoyce. And cool. He's helped us solidify our marketing efforts beyond just what we had been built on, which is a referral network. And I think most advisors are familiar with the referral source of business. We wanted to expand our opportunity set. And so we've been leaning into the seminar world, and that's actually been a big driver for us in the last few months. And When I say we're just scratching the surface, I truly believe that, because we've seen a lot of upfront success from seminars, but we're looking longer term, adding additional arms via social media presence or YouTube or email marketing, a variety of ways to get in front of prospective clients.
Got it. Okay. So that's pretty cool that you met at Future Proof, because, even a few years ago, Future Proof didn't exist, right? And now, truly cultivating community. Just spoke with Matt Middleton the other week. So shout out to Future Proof. Okay, so this is the AI Native Advisor podcast. So as you think about the state of where Continuum, maybe ought to be, or you strive to be at 3, 4, 5 years down the line. What are you toying around with currently on just any sort of AI workflows or different tools? And then I want to get to, what's the future state, that we hope these things get to? So what have you already tried?
Yeah, so for table stakes, we have note takers. I think most advisors have adopted that in some way, shape, or form. It's been a big improvement for our efficiency, getting things into our CRM a lot quicker. A few years ago, actually probably no more than 2 years ago, our lead advisor, my business partner, Tim Smith, he was typing the notes into our CRM, and
just 2 years ago,
he would have a backlog of stuff on his desk that he needed to get to. So we've made the transition into the AI note taker, and that's been a big jump for us internally. And I struggle with balancing between being hyper efficient on things and introducing new technology, new workflows into processes, because I always think that there's going to be a better way to do things. But on the other side of that coin is the fact that now you have to train the team on it. You have to get everybody adopted into the new process, the new technology. And sometimes I can be a bit bull in a china shop, whereas let's just do this without thinking about some of the other implications. So I want to be smart about the way that we introduce, especially a new technology like AI, into our systems. But I do want to lean on it to eliminate some of the more mundane tasks that occur in our day-to-day existence. When we talk about what it looks like in the future, and if I were to wave a magic wand, I would love some sort of interface where we are able to just have a system that is kind of overlaid all of our data, whether it's financial planning, investment management, CRM, whatever it is, and then just being able to communicate with that interface and say, Mr. or Mrs. Smith need an additional $20,000 per year. Can you update their financial plan and run a new projection for them? Can you also generate the trades that are going to get them those distributions? And I don't know if that's a pipe dream or not, but I think that would be a very useful way to interact with this new technology.
Yeah, well, I think that's the topic right now in AI. I mean, when you get under the surface of the frenzy of note takers or whatever the shiniest new gadget is, it's the data management strategy organization. That's why you hear all this talk of data lakes, data warehouses, ETL versus ELT and all of that. Let me ask you this question. So in terms of have all the data in one place and have this, singular overlay at some point in the future that, you kind of have everything that you need. What do you think are the, lower hanging fruit versus more challenging areas of organizing that data?
As far as organizing the data, again, I don't know the back end of it, but I think some frustration lies right now, especially with when we talk to advisors, we talk about what is your tech stack? What's your tech stack? Does it communicate? Are there integrations? I know you and I have gone back and forth on what our tech stack looks like and some of the frustrations as far as integrations go. So I don't know what that would look like in the future and getting that sort of integration. I'm not a technology person. I know enough to be dangerous, but to organize the data in a way that is cohesive with the way that the advisor interacts. Because at the end of the day, we are financial advisors. We are financial people. We shouldn't have to be prompt engineers or people that know how to. It should be very user friendly for us on the front end.
Yeah, and actually, so my question is more coming from the human side of kind of advisor habits. So some of the things we'll see are as simple as messy notes in the CRM, right? Rather than individual fields populated, It might have an advisor. I mean, look, I ran a sales team. We had 50 sales and customer success reps, and you see this all the time. We were a Salesforce shop in my previous tech company, and you see individual notes posted, across the lifetime of a client or a new lead, and within any given messy, paragraph note, you might have, in this case, what given family member names, who the estate planner is. It might be certain financial information. I mean, hopefully that's gotten into the right fields, but just this mess of paragraph data, which actually there's programs to be run to, make sense of that and extract it into fields. There's also sometimes, the hardest thing to deal with is if the data just hasn't gone digital. If we'll still see, screenshot or photos taken of, handwritten notes that AI can read a good amount of handwriting, but not everybody's, probably not mine.
Yeah.
And so some of it is habitual of like, hey, here's information that's not. It's either written somewhere and it's not going into a database, or maybe it's living in the advisor's head.
Yeah.
And in a proactive AI strategy, it's like, maybe we could pull more of that out. Do any of those kind of topics come to your mind of, we see these kind of themes tend to be, we got to go talk to the advisor until we can, before we can find it out?
Yeah, you mentioned that. And that's an issue that we are dealing with internally, because Tim is the founder, lead advisor. He manages over 90% of our client relationships. He's the lead advisor on it. And he's been in the business for 35 years. And so a lot of my job, or what I'm trying to do as this transition is happening, we didn't touch on that, but he brought me on to be the succession plan in the business. And so I'm trying to plan for the eventuality, and there's no timeline on it right now, but the eventuality where he wants to step back and then transition some of those clients to different roles. We need to take some of that data that's in his head and get it into a centralized location. So we've been pushing for that in our CRM to say, what do you know about these people outside of the stuff that is in Schwab, right? We can have all of the numbers, the basic data, but what do you know about this person that, yes, I could dig through years and years of notes to find it in that paragraph format, like you mentioned, but how can we access that more readily? How can we, in essence, converse with our CRM to say, does this person have beneficiaries that live in the state, or any? Of course, we could find that via like our beneficiary designations, but just having ready access to it and saving the time of digging through all of there's this mess of data.
Yeah. Wow. What a big theme that is. The transitioning rainmaker founder advisor, right? I mean, that's got to be core to, the big McKinsey study of predicting, a shortage of 90 million financial advisors over the next 10 years. And who knows if that's the right number or not, but the theme is that there is not only a wealth transfer to the next generation of clients, but there's certainly this transition occurring of, the actual wealth managers. So just to understand the context here, what you just explained to us is Continuum's origin story is basically this phenomenal founder advisor, Tim, who built up the company. Now, he's brought you in as chief investment officer. There's some infrastructure, good infrastructure being built. And at some point, it's not tomorrow, but at some point, he's building Continuum. You two are building Continuum to be, a lasting firm. The long game, as Eric Becker at Crescent, calls it. And so playing the long game, you now are digging into 30 years of Tim.
Yeah.
So where does the 30 years of Tim exist? Is it all in CRM, email, notes? Like, how do you start to break that out?
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of it is in his head because he knows these clients. He knows them intimately. He's been interacting with them for so long. And another challenge.
And he's great at his job.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we're not saying that as an insult to Tim. He's great to be able to have that in your head is a compliment. Right.
And people work with us because of their relationship with him. And so I don't want there to be any hiccups in that transition plan whenever that happens, because that's a disservice to the clients who have trusted Tim and this firm with their money, and making that transition as smooth as possible is one of the things that I'm keenly aware of. And another challenge that we're facing is the fact that we want to, as we put it, enter into hypergrowth mode. And so now we're almost like running two separate objectives. One is making sure our current client base is taken care of. They mean everything to us. They've been with us from the very beginning. But then also, how do we onboard new people? How do we make them feel like our old clients and don't lose the sentiment of who we are as a business? We never want to, and this is plays into the AI talk, but we never want to lose the aspect of being human. We don't want to automate out client communications. We don't want to automate out everything. If you do that and you lose your humanity, I think you're going to be left behind in this business.
Okay, that's a great topic too. So can you give us some examples of what are maybe some things that you don't want to automate out? What are some things that you're like, oh, I can't wait till we automate this out?
I would never automate out any sort of communication that goes in front of a client. Like you can get the framework, but you have to make it yourself. As an example, I write all of our newsletters that go out that talk about the markets. And we have a financial planning corner that our director of financial planning writes. Everything is written by me and our team. If I've looked at some of the other options that are written by outside sources, or I could go to ChatGPT and say, give me a breakdown of the recent month's action in the market. And it comes across as so canned. And to be honest, it's pretty terrible. And if you are just looking for that shortcut as an advisor, you're forgetting the reason why people are working with you instead of a robot. It's because they want to work with a person. So I think you can use whatever AI tool that you want. You can use it as a thought partner to generate ideas, to bounce ideas off, but it should never be that front and center for you and you just clean up some of the language or take out the M dashes or something, right? Like you can't forget that you're a human being and people want to work with human beings, especially when they're trusting them with their money. And then the second part of your question was, what's a situation where I wish they did automate it out? I would say like any sort of like major data scraping, like a client sends us our accounts, right? And they're all in PDF format, or like you said, sometimes they're taking pictures of their statement and sending it to us via email. I would love a situation, and it already kind of exists in some form, where you can just upload that and it's automatically communicating with our Right Capital, our inputting into the financial planning data. All the things are populated in our CRM. That's a big time-saving task that otherwise we're going to have somebody on the team doing.
Yeah. Yeah, the data management, I mean, every company in the world has, somebody who spends a good amount of their time, across industries, just trying to clean up, these little data pieces. And so I totally agree, in ingesting, client files to go to the right places and parse down to the right fields. Like no human really wants to do that. On the creative side, the writing piece, such an interesting one for me. Danny and I, my co-founder CTO with Improve, have talked a lot about this. So, me, I'm a writer by, just by habit and practice, right? I've got a newsletter of just more like creative thoughts, the entrepreneurial journey that goes out every 2 weeks. I spent 5 years, probably about 1,000 hours writing a book that detailed, pieces of my previous entrepreneurial experience. And so like I'm a writer. When you see this sort of slop of just AI, written text, it kind of melts your heart as a creator. Like, oh no, does the authentic, the memo that David actually wrote, does that get drowned out in all of this other stuff? So on the one hand, I'm a little bit anti. On the other side, efficiency of information share is something that, I've definitely seen. My previous company got to 120 employees, and you see that, okay, there is just friction in writing of getting the right information out. So the balance that I'm intrigued by is, can AI be a fly on the wall when, David Rath is having the conversations that would ultimately, give some of the substance to the memo or the internal communications, and maybe help the efficiency of information share moves a little bit more smoothly, but not to the point of it being all the way at the finish line. But the art of like, what is that balance is really tough. And especially in the RIA space or advisors, I mean, everybody's got a website with a blog. And I can tell you from my own exposure to clients and folks we talk to, it's like almost 70, maybe 80% of these blogs on an RIA site are like pure AI written content about whatever evergreen topics. Yeah. That to me, I think, becomes a disadvantage when everybody's doing that. Yeah. And so how do you stand out in that? You do your own writing, you have a podcast, but help us understand, how are you standing out against the AI content slop?
I just had this conversation this morning. A friend of mine, I signed him up for a newsletter, and he gave me some feedback. He's like, this is really digestible. It's easy to read. And I say, I don't want to be like the traditional stuffy financial newsletter. And especially in the world of AI, I don't want to be just this AI generated slop. And you can just do that by being very conversational in the way that you talk about things, making references to pop culture, talking in maybe not grammatically perfect sentences, and like just talk like write like you talk. And I think people can relate to that. And so I like to write in a way that is informative and hopefully somewhat entertaining. And I want me as a person to show through, instead of, as you put it, if you're just generating educational content via an AI, it is not going to stand out from anything else. But if I can take that same piece of content, put my own spin on it, give my opinion of that, and then my personal opinion, that has a chance to stand out in the world of just everybody being able to access all of the information at their fingertips in a second.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Let me ask you this before we're at about 20 minutes. We keep these at 20, 25 minutes. You're a chief investment officer. In terms of, AI strategy or functionality, are there things that you find a chief investment officer is thinking about or trying to solve that are in some way different than what the advisor level are trying to solve?
It's a good question, because as far as research tools go, I mainly look at my charts, and I see where the market's moving. I have my CMT, which is Chartered Market Technician, where I'm reading the markets via price action and seeing what's going on and applying the techniques that I've learned over the years to that analysis. I'm sure you can, there are tools out there where you can have AI scrape through all of the transcripts on conference calls and generate a fundamental thesis on a stock or any sort of strategy that way. That's not necessarily my style at the moment. We prefer to be very vanilla in the way that we approach things. We're not trying to, quote unquote, beat the market. We're trying to control for risk. We're trying to do things that these techniques have been in place for a long, long time. So I haven't found an AI application that's native to the investment process, just because I'm tried and true in the way that I've approached things so far. I will say my chief investment officer is my title. However, I wear a lot of hats around here, and I use AI a lot in like the idea generation phase, from the business standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. I'll use it to converse and ask me what I'm missing regarding a topic. Hey, here's what I'm thinking. Where are my holes? Where are the holes in my thinking? So there's a lot of ways to do it.
If I can ask, what tool do you use for that type of ideation? Is that ChatGPT?
Yeah, I use Chat, but I also have like Perplexity and basically all the tools, and you use that in different forms. I will say one thing that has been somewhat frustrating for me so far has been when I wanted to do something and I can't get it to do what I want it to do, and then I just give up on that task. As an example, I was using Perplexity to scrape the internet to say, what are the top retirement topics of the week? Can you give me links to the articles? And then it gets back to me, all the links are broken, and like none of the information that I requested is there. Was that a problem with the prompt that I wrote? Probably, but again, I don't have time to iterate on that prompt to figure out the correct way to do it,
Yeah. Well, and you're touching to a very big wider theme of if like improve, right? We build workflow software, and we do a lot of it tailor fitted. But if you're building workflow software on top of AI and something all of a sudden goes wrong, that's adding more friction to the workflow. Like you just said, all the links are broken. That becomes a downward spiral of, okay, now, AI is, I don't know, perhaps too embedded across things, and then something's breaking and it's causing more friction. So, a lot of thoughtfulness has to go into, putting AI at the right place, right time, with the right context. Great. Well, this was a really informative insight into a firm that, again, congratulations, just passed 300 million AUM. You've added a few roles, entering into hypergrowth mode, and thinking about future transition planning. So you're hitting a lot of these major themes that folks are thinking about, and you're at the forefront of tinkering with a lot of different AI tools. So, David, we'll have to have you on again. Thanks for sharing all this today, and have a great weekend out in Saratoga.
Thanks a lot, Mike.